Hi, Steve Good here with the Scroll Saw Workshop. If you're a fan of scroll saw projects, you're going to love this one. This July 2019, NASA will be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Apollo moon landings. On July 20th, 1969, Commander Neil Armstrong, Lunar Module Pilot Buzz Aldrin, and Command Module Pilot Michael Collins made that first journey to the moon. As part of the celebration, NASA commissioned our friend and world-renowned Intarsia artist, Judy Gale Roberts, to do a masterpiece that you're just going to have to see to believe. For those of you who may not be familiar with Intarsia, it is a 15th century Italian art form where you take individual pieces of different species of wood, cut them and contour them into beautiful pieces of art. Now these species of wood are selected for their color and their grain, and they're put together kind of like a puzzle to make the finished piece. To add even more significance to this piece, some of the wood used to create it came from a moon tree. Let me explain. We all know there's no trees on the moon, so what am I talking about? Well, on Apollo 14, astronaut Stuart Roosa took a pack of sycamore tree seeds with him on the journey. I won't go into all the details of why he took these seeds to the moon, just know that he did, and when they brought them back, the U.S. Forest Service planted some trees from these seeds. Unfortunately, in 2017, Hurricane Irma came through Florida through Cape Canaveral and took down the moon tree. There was very little of the tree that was salvageable, but they were able to hang on to a 24-inch log, and that's what you see in the picture above. That log was saved to be part of the celebration for the 50th anniversary and was used to commission art pieces. The executives at NASA had a space shuttle engineer who had retired by the name of Scott Phillips. Now Scott is a woodworker himself and a carver, and when they told him about this chunk of tree that they had and that they wanted him to look for somebody to commission an artwork from, he thought of Judy right away, and that's how this began. Now keep in mind that Judy Gale Roberts was not chosen because she's an Intarsia artist, but because she is the Intarsia artist. She's pretty much credited with bringing the art to the United States. She's a world-renowned published author, been in the field for 30 plus years. The credits just go on and on. She has over 700 Intarsia patterns that she's created, and her studio teaches students every year and has for several years. I was thrilled a few months ago when I was contacted by the Judy Gale Roberts studio and told that NASA and Judy were going to allow me to help document the creation of this masterpiece. And that's what I'm going to show you here tonight, some of the steps that led up to this piece being made, and also the little ceremony that they had there at Judy's studio where they presented it to NASA. I don't want to keep you from seeing this incredible piece any longer, so I'm going to show you the finished artwork now, and then we'll move into the creation of this piece. Absolutely remarkable piece. You'll get a better understanding of the scale of this piece in some later photographs, but just understand that this is 1,200 pieces of wood. Now, all the pieces you see except for the blue and the flag are natural wood. There was no blue that they could use in a natural color, so that was dyed. She has over 150 hours in the design process and the selecting of the species of wood. Judy herself has over 700 hours in cutting and contouring the pieces, and the staff there at Judy Gale Roberts Studio has another 200 hours in also helping to cut this piece. Just absolutely stunning. A couple of things I want to point out here on the finished piece, and then we'll move into showing you the photographs of the construction. The plaque you see at the bottom of the piece of art is the plaque that was left on the moon by the astronauts of the first Apollo 11 moon landing. And it is a replica of that plaque that was laser engraved. Now, the neat thing about it is the wood that the laser engraving is on is a piece of the moon wood. Also, the flagpole is a piece of the moon wood, and some of the earth that you see in the sky in the background is also part of the moon wood. As you can probably imagine, Judy and her staff spent many hours looking at concept art, looking at pictures of the Apollo moon landing, editing and re-editing the composition of the final piece of art, many hours of drawing the pattern and printing them out and drawing them again and printing them out until they got everything exactly the way they wanted it. Once NASA approved the final sketch of the finished piece, it was time for Judy and her staff to really jump in and get this project done. They were under a pretty tight deadline to get this completed, so they put in a lot of late hours to finish this up. And you'll see in some of these next pictures a few of the beginning steps of a piece of this scale. Keeping track of a piece of this scale is really difficult just because of the large number of pieces. So they had to stay organized and lay the pattern out strategically and keep the pieces together as they made these cuts. All the pieces were going to be cut and then contoured, so they did it in sections. In these next few pictures, you're seeing the pieces that have been cut, laid back down on the pattern to keep them in some kind of order, and then once they get this done, they'll actually go back and spend the hours of sanding it takes to contour each of these pieces into a 3D form that gives the finished piece the depth and the 3D look. In this amazing series of pictures, you're seeing the eagle part of this art piece taken from its initial flat stages after being cut all the way through the contouring and the final assembly of this piece. The level of work here and the skill required are simply on a level that most of us could never even dream of achieving. But Judy's been doing this so long, and she's such a talented artist that she can make these things look alive. Here's a look at some of the hundreds of pieces of wood and the different species that Judy used to create this art piece. You can see that the species are all different colors, and the grain patterns are used in a way that gives the final piece a more three-dimensional look. Takes a lot of skill. Here are a couple more pictures of close-ups of the final contoured pieces to give you a better idea of what it looks like. And now I'll show you a picture that gives you an idea of the scale of this piece. Here is the unfinished artwork. Now keep in mind that the eagle has not been attached to the top of the piece. It doesn't have the frame on it. None of these pieces have been glued down. Believe it or not, they assembled this thing completely, took it back apart, make sure everything fit, and then they glued it all down. So there were still several more hours of work to do even after this picture was taken. This was my first trip down there to look at this piece, and I was already blown away. Now before we get too much longer, because this video is getting really long, I want to show you the presentation that they did with NASA. Retired NASA Space Shuttle engineer Scott Phillips came to Judy's studio to receive the piece. And what you're going to see here in this short video clip is that presentation.
For being here. It's been a long 2-3 months, but well, it's an emotional event because 2 years ago at the artistry in Wood, this guy walked up talking about moonwood and spirits. I said, oh, he's drunk. And a year and a half later, or a year later, he gives me a call and he says he's got a project for Judy. And we talked and negotiated and hammered a deal. And what a piece. It's going to be hanging in the museum at NASA. And it's got over 1,200 pieces and 1,000 hours. Wow. Judy?
Every one of them.
You want to say a little something?
No, it's too soon. You have
Okay.
somebody else.
I want to recognize Dr. Pete Rickey and Mary Ann Vanderboard and Stacy. They helped on this project a lot. Right now, I'd like to introduce you to Scott Phillips. He's an author, a carver, and an engineer. So you can kind of ignore the engineer part. You know how that goes.
And a musician.
And a musician, and his wife has a couple other words for him, but we're not going to say anything about that right now. And Scott, thank you.
All right, good to be here. Hey, great. And I'll tell you what, he didn't mention that I'm a father. I have 2 boys. My wife and I adopted 2 boys after we got married. So we have an 18 and 19-year-old. So we're an older couple, but we have an 18 and 19-year-old. So they're following kind of the mindset. How many people, and I can all look, we were all here during the moon landing, were we not?
Yep.
Okay. Who's the oldest one here that think when they landed on the moon? I was 10. I was born in 59, so can anybody outdo that?
49.
Okay, you were born in 49, so you were 10 years older than me, so you were 45. Okay, 45, so, okay. Wow! I think we might have a winner. 41. Okay, so I think we have, okay, so I thank you for being here. I tell you what, I feel really honored being in front of this group of people right here. Did y'all have fun this week with Judy Gale? She is probably well, not probably, you are the best in the world. And that's why. That's why when I was given this task for NASA, of course I'm retired, I worked in the space shuttle program, not to bore. I recognize you from somewhere, I know you, but you, yeah. But anyhow, artistry and word or something, but anyhow. So when I was tasked, that I had a grand thing happen that, Apollo 14, we all remember Apollo 14. Well, not everybody remembers. They took up tree seeds to the moon. Did you know that? Anybody in here not know that? Well, Stu Roos of the astronaut, you can look it up. Of course, on the internet it's well known, but he was a smoke jumper before he became an astronaut. But he wanted to honor not only the flight of 71 of Apollo 14, but he wanted to honor the 200th anniversary of America. In 1976, they planted a sycamore tree at the Kennedy Space Center to honor the American people. And so really, as time went on, of course I carved. I'm a carver. I'm not a scribbler like y'all, but I probably will be eventually because I really love it. You inspired me. So honey, for Christmas, so I'm going to graduate from a carver to a scroller for you guys selling. So anyhow, I was given a task that I carved, of course, all the space shuttle models for the returning shuttle crews for 30 years. So my reputation was known as Shuttle Man because I carved, because I actually wasn't because of my engineering work that I was known for it, but it was because of my work at the NASA Field Center. So anyhow, long story short is the fact that traditionally NASA mulches any tree that grew from those seeds. And we're down to about the last 50 trees in the world. But the sycamore was planted at the Kennedy Space Center and visited by millions. And so anyhow, Irma, the storm, if we all remember the Hurricane Irma, a year and a half, 2 years ago, came through and knocked this tree down. So, of course, I knew about it. Of course, I'm a wood hound, like we all are to a certain degree. We're always looking for that unique wood. Well, they remembered my legacy of 30 years of carving over 450 space shuttle models for the returning crew. And I was saying that other than the fact that the gift that God really gave me was to work with my hands, and that's what you all are doing. What a legacy you guys have. So, anyhow, I'm a little emotional here because this is going to be something that has been in the years making. So I get a phone call. It's the center director of the Kennedy Space Center, and he said, hey, we're going to mulch the tree, but we saved a 24-inch log for you to carve the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. I'm thinking, after Diane picked me up off the floor, I'm thinking, I have something the American people are entrusting me to pass on for the next 500 years. landing man on the moon, if we all know, was the greatest adventure of the 20th century. The pharaohs of Egypt would have adored to have the technology that we were born into. And today we, of course, live off of that with all of our cell phones, and you're taking pictures and all that. So we have a responsibility, not only as American citizens, but as woodworkers, as artists wannabes, and of course the wives, the husbands, everybody that supports that, this is the legacy that we want to leave in our generation. So really and I want to thank Judy for catching it. I want to thank Steve for not thinking I was a drunk. Because I felt like one, because I've never said moonwood before. Because everyone knows there's no trees on the moon. But it is through the tree seeds. So what a journey this tree has had. And so, without any further ado, I guess I really want to unveil.
He hasn't seen it yet.
What's that? I've not seen it. I've not seen it. So here again, it is done with moonwood, and this is done with love. And so at this point in time, I'd like to unveil this. So Judy, well, we got to.
And I have to get out of the light there.
Wow.
Masterpiece.
Oh, wow.
Wow. The steps.
Now what's going to happen is
They can't share it.
this will be at the Kennedy Space Center. We will deliver this down to the Atlantis, where the Atlantis orbiter is at. It's a $100 million. Let me get out of the way, actually. So you can get pictures. But this will go into a museum for the legacy of landing man on the moon. Wow, Judy, this is wow. This is unbelievable. This is wow. So.
Stand way back.
Well, I'll tell you what, the moonwood is very obvious to me. The plaque itself that was left on the moon, that we come in peace for all mankind, and of course signed by Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins, as we see in the center, that is a larger piece of the moonwood that actually is from there. And then it is the flagpole also. So we have flagpole and
it's right here.
and that is in the Mars area. Was there. So here again, I think the lake wow, this is awesome. That is beautiful. It is absolutely
A lot of goosebumps in the room.
breathtaking.
Yeah.
I need to say that everybody that's filming and taking photos, you can't release any of this online until
Right.
after July 20th, okay?
And
Otherwise, we will hunt you down, and copyright laws will apply.
Well, and here again, we want to surprise the American people. Sure. So on behalf of the American people, you guys all have a secret. So at this point in time, I trust that you keep that, and because it's going to be after the fact, then all games are, everything's on there. But we'll hold ourselves until after that date, and wow, I don't know, I just don't know what else to say. It's just absolutely believable.
Yes.
And I'd like to mention that anybody interested, I do have some things, and I did bring some books along. I'm not into, selling anything, but the fact that we do have some books called Remove Before Flight. I was the last man out of the very first space shuttle, and I removed the final ribbon. I was 22 years old,
Oh, wow.
and I came out of the test team for the ET1, the external tank number 1. We were changing out the gas tank level sensors, and I was the last technician out of the very first space shuttle in 1981. So I pulled the ribbon called Remove Before Flight, and my book is called Remove Before Flight.
Very neat. Wow.
You can look it up on the internet.
Scott was so generous too that he brought something here, Scott.
Well, I thought that people might be motivated, but I do have some pieces of moonwood. So anybody that wants to come pay us a visit, I'll give you a piece of moonwood.
$39.95. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'll limit it to one per family, though. One per family. But I'd be honored to pass on Apollo 14
What a
sycamore
treasure.
moonwood. And like I say, keep it to yourself until after the event. This is a private situation. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You almost forgot the one.
Yeah.
And feel free to come up, take a look, and look.
If you want to get a picture of Judy,
Are smaller than your fingernail. Yeah, that's great.
I want to take just a second to thank Judy Gale Roberts and her staff and NASA for allowing me to follow this project. It had to be kept kind of under the cover for a while until it got presented to NASA. So I finally had the okay to release this video, and I'm really thrilled to be able to show it to you because I grew up in this age of Apollo, and these guys were my heroes. I'm sure many of you feel the same way. And to see this project and realize that this piece of art will hang down at Cape Canaveral for probably hundreds of years is really a thrill to know that I was able to see this come to fruition. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was kind of long, but I think it was worth the time that I took to present this to you. Again, thanks Judy, thanks Stephen, thanks NASA, and congratulations on a wonderful piece.